time to waste when we got my man Eric Sorenson on the other end of the horn. Eric joins us from D1Baseball.com, Farm Bureau phone line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. What is up?
Holy cow, Rich. I feel like this is a family reunion that's been a long time coming. So glad to be back on your show, my man. You are the king.
Well, you're kind to say that. You know how much I enjoy visiting with you. I think we talked probably about this time a year ago, and then it all came to a screeching halt. It was heartbreaking for many of us. But, man, look, so you know how big a deal baseball is where we live in the state of Mississippi. And it's heightened this year when you look at Ole Miss and Mississippi State, both in the preseason top 10. In the D1 Baseball preseason poll, Southern Miss is right there on the cusp as a top 25 team as well, probably a postseason team. Feels like folks in Mississippi have got a lot of reason to be excited.
Oh, man, yeah. This is, just to go per capita, I mean, Mississippi has to have the best college baseball, I would imagine, in the country. But no, all kidding aside, though, yeah, you've got three teams that are legit, you said it, that are legit going to go to the postseason more than likely, unless something really bad happens. I could see Ole Miss, especially the way they started last year, they could be an Omaha team. I know they had a few losses to the draft. But I think all three of those teams, especially the two SEC teams, I think they're just going to be outstanding, and it'll probably be them two fighting it out for the West Division title, if you ask me. And again, they have Omaha on their minds, and both teams are made to put together for that kind of run this year.
Eric, we've talked with your colleagues, Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt. I'll ask you and kind of get your impressions as well. This tournament that we've got in Arlington that starts 10 days from today, 3 SEC teams in Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Arkansas, 3 from the Big 12 and TCU, Texas Tech, and Texas. I can't come up with anything that we've seen quite like this, where you've got 6 teams in the top 10 playing a round robin to open the season. I don't think we've ever had something like this.
No, this is definitely unprecedented, and God, that's what makes college baseball so cool. I mean, you can't have something like this in college football. You know, college basketball does have some pretty good tournaments too, but again, I don't think they get this top-notch quality like you've got for going for that. And that's opening weekend. You kind of wish there were like some exhibition games these teams could play to get together. I mean, before they get together and play that tournament. But yeah, I was at the Houston College Classic last year when, you know, you had kind of it was like a Big 12 SEC type of thing there too. I got to see Oklahoma throw a no-hitter against LSU. There's just great baseball played. And yeah, that's going to be really something. I'm sure Kendall's probably going to be covering that unless my lawsuit goes through to the courts. But other than that, yeah, no, he's going to be in. He's going to be in for some great baseball, and those are the teams. I mean, again, I know it's a little bit stating the obvious. They're all capable Omaha teams because they're all in the top 10 of the preseason. But yeah, it's going to be great baseball. And that's one of the things I love that college baseball can do more so than any other sport, just about.
What are you most excited for going into this season, big picture, as you kind of look across the country?
I don't know. I'm just most excited, and this is going to sound sappy. Just get the games going. I just can't wait for it to get up again, because last season was such a great start, I thought. And so this year, just, you know, the kids kind of deserve to get out there and play. It's, you know, they've been pent up and not being able to play against an opponent for, you know, whatever it's been now, 10 months, whatever the case, 11 months. So yeah, I just want to see it go. And of course, it's not going to go fully swimmingly, but I'd love to see it get as close to normal as we can for our sport, and get back to Omaha, get back to deciding a national champion, and you know, have, hopefully by the end of the season, maybe have some unfettered crowds in Omaha. But we'll see about that. But otherwise, just getting the ball games going, man. That's what I look forward to.
Eric, we saw it in football with the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 kind of lead the way in terms of we're going to play. It's going to be bumpy, but we are going to play. And then finally the Big 10 and the Pac-12 got on board. We know that the Big 10 is probably only doing – I say we know and then say probably. I heard an interview with Rutgers head coach last week He said they're only playing conference games, and they don't know when it's going to start. We know they're not playing February 19th. You're on the West Coast. What's the attitude about college baseball on the West Coast, from the Pac-12, from the MAC, from the Mountain West, from some of those leagues?
Yeah, a lot of them are. I mean, like the Pac-12, from what I can tell, most of them are going pretty normal. I think the only difference was John Savage, the coach at UCLA, told me they did change the schedule up to where they're only playing fairly close teams, like University of San Francisco in the non-conference, University of San Francisco and UC Santa Barbara, et cetera. I think there's going to be some bumpy, because for instance, the Big West, which I wrote the preview for, Long Beach State's not going to start their season. They're not going to start practice until the 15th of February, and not going to start their season until I think it's March 10th or 11th, in and around there. And they're playing only conference games, but at the same time, you have Fullerton. They're going to be playing non-conference games this year, and some pretty good ones, too, including a 3-game series with Arizona State. So it's kind of all over the place. I know that there are some state schools in California that are just going to be playing conference only, and that's kind of too bad, especially with the case of Long Beach State, since they had such a great start last year. And Mississippi State fans remember that series they played. But so, yeah, it's going to be kind of hither and yon. It's going to be, but for the most part, I think most of the schools out here have tried and have successfully put together a sort of normal regular season schedule. I think the only thing you're probably not going to get out here is a lot of midweek games. Those have kind of been scaled back a good bit by most programs.
Eric, we're only a few years removed from the West Coast kind of going from really good to an afterthought. And, we were looking at rankings and host sites, and it was all east of the Mississippi, southeast, southwest, and just not much on the West Coast. But it felt like over the last couple of years, obviously UCLA has been outstanding. Washington has emerged as a really good program. Arizona State feels like it's coming back. You mentioned Long Beach, who was terrible 2 years ago. Last year made what it felt like was a nice bounce back. Is baseball at the college level on the West Coast on the ascension right now?
Yeah, I kind of think so, Rich. And it was deserved that you say that the West Coast was down a little bit a couple of years ago, and that's certainly true. I think things amped up. That was one of the things. That was one of the big drags about last year. Again, we mentioned Long Beach State, but you also had USC had really bounced back. They beat TCU and Vanderbilt in the early season last year, and they're actually looking like, I think they're going to be. I actually had them in my preseason top 25 for Athlons Magazine, but they made a good bounce back. And you mentioned Arizona State. Tracy Smith finally got things together there. I think Arizona's going to be. I think most people have them in their preseason top 15 or so. It's the only thing that's kind of the skunk at the picnic is. You had teams last year like Stanford, Oregon State, and Cal, kind of traditional, especially Stanford and Oregon State. They were traditional powers, and they got off to, I think they were both 5-11 or 5-12, something like that. So I think if those teams come back and be strong again, the West Coast actually looks like it could be, put an asterisk next to this, but could be back this year, just based on how it started off last year, and I think some of the potential that you see up and down the West Coast.
Who are you in love with from the SEC this year?
I'm sorry, I missed your question. What was that again?
I said, who are you most in love with this year in the SEC?
Oh, well, I think we mentioned your teams in your area. I certainly think that they're great. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, they're not going to skip much of a beat this year. I will like to see what Mississippi State's starting rotation does once they play, because they have not faced any SEC competition. So those two, obviously, in the West, Florida and Vanderbilt are easy to say that they're they're definitely teams to watch because both of them just have so much talent. And you were asking actually a few questions ago. You said, "What am I excited about?" One of the things I'm definitely excited about is seeing how Vanderbilt with Kumar Rocker, who's kind of the face of our game, of our sport this year. Kumar Rocker and Leiter, the 1-2 punch there. And just imagining them going up against Tommy Mace and Leftwich of Florida, that would be such great Friday and Saturday. That would be such great theater. So those teams are obviously in the East. Those teams are obviously going to be the ones that you kind of have to watch for. And I kind of also have a side eye on Alabama, which got off to a 16-1 start last year. a little under the radar, and kind of see how that turns out this year, and how they do in the SEC. But yeah, I think those are the four teams, the best of the SEC. That certainly was Florida, Vanderbilt, and then your two schools in Mississippi. I like the looks of all four of them.
That's an interesting take on Alabama. Didn't play a very difficult schedule, but very successful.
True.
And you remember when Brad Bohannon was hired, people said, just give it a little bit. This thing is going to turn around at Alabama. So feels like that's happening. Yeah. The time is always too short, Eric. Look forward to talking to you throughout the year. Let's play 56 in the regular season and then have a rocking postseason.
Oh, Rich, again, this is getting back to normalcy for me, so I appreciate you sharing the airwaves, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Eric Sorenson writes at D1Baseball.com. You can read his stuff there. Follow him on Twitter at @Stitch_head.